for the time being, and hopefully it's a very, very long time, I am excommunicated from the content space. So there would be no podcast. We'll do something when I have a breather from what we have coming up. I'm going to be drinking out of a fire hose for the next month. But at some point, we'll just do something for all the people that listened, and we'll have a small little video. But I'm done with podcasting for now.
So Rob and JJ Broderick Turner, JJ, Rob, you guys keep talking about culture. What does that mean, and how do you go about putting that in place?
You know, what becomes immediately impactful when you get to spend time with JJ is he has a obsession about winning and an obsession about excellence. We've had players come through here that share that mindset. But I think the two things that come to mind in terms of culture are mixing the service component that JJ talked about at the beginning. His job, my job, is not to be out in front as much as it is to be behind the players, supporting them to be great and providing all the resources, the coaching, the mentoring for them to be great. And then just obsessing about the details to get to a place of excellence and to get to a place of winning. I think that combination of those two divergent things is really important to our championship culture here.
I'll be very simple in my answer. Like, to me, culture is very simply two things. It's how a group interacts with each other, and it's the things that a group prioritizes. And so as the head coach and as the GM, like, along with the players, we have to determine how we're going to interact with each other and what we prioritize. And it's all those things we talked about.
Mitch, were there a couple people that didn't get a chance that we want to? I'm more than happy. I know you guys traveled a long way to get here. Happy to do a couple more.
JJ, what are you most curious to learn about just the process and art of coaching, like as you go through this year?
My first challenge. No, it's interesting because I have, going back the last year, I've always been a visual person. As a player, I relied on visualization. In a workout in high school, I had a free period, and on game days, I would walk through the gym, and I would look at certain spots on the floor, and I would visualize coming off screens and where the defense would be and the angle which I shot the ball, the arc on the ball, and I've visualized every scenario. For the last year, that's what I've done in terms of coaching. And the fun part, I think, for me is just going to be actually having that become reality and learning. I consider myself to be someone who has a high level of curiosity and a love of learning. I'm not going to be perfect. I know that, right? The pursuit of perfection, which I've tried my whole life, I've recognized you're never going to get there. So giving myself a little bit of grace is going to be important. I'm not expecting grace from any of you. I don't expect that. It's fine. No, I really don't. I don't. But giving myself a little bit of that is going to be important. If there's like a specific thing, I mean, it's very simply, what is the feeling going to be like walking out for your first regular season game and sitting there and putting your hand over your heart for the national anthem? What is that feeling going to be like?
Hi, Coach. Yeah, I work for Kyodo News, Japanese News Wire. So I want to ask two questions about Rui Hachimura. First one is, obviously, roster is not set yet. However, how do you want to use his strengths on the court? And second one, he hasn't made it official yet, but in my opinion, he's probably playing for the Japanese national team in the Paris Olympic. if he does, would this affect your plans for Rui?
I'll start and then hand it off to Coach. We had the privilege this morning of being able to have some time with Rui. He was in the facility, and super excited to watch JJ coach him. And he did share with us, and I'm sure he'll have his own news that he's thinking through the Olympics, and hopefully there'll be good news there. But it was great to sit upstairs with him earlier today, and he's going to have a great summer.
Yeah, I thought he had a fantastic year last year. One of the things, and maybe I should have mentioned this to Ramona's question, but beyond just the Lakers and LeBron and Anthony Davis, I'm excited about some of the younger guys on this roster and helping them. I had great conversations this weekend. Two that I had that I loved were my conversation with Austin and my conversation with Rui. And, I think for him, in terms of how I envision sort of him on this team, I want him shooting more threes. So that's a big part of it. I brought up the offensive rebounding. I think he can really become an elite offensive rebounder. As we sort of build out our offensive system and how we're going to play, when we start incorporating movement and cutting, Roy can be an excellent cutter, and part of that is because we're going to manipulate screening angles. He's going to get mismatches, and he can really score at the basket if he has smaller players on him.
First of all, Eric Pincus with Bleacher Report. Thank you, Rob, for a little bit of extra time. Just want to ask the coach here. You mentioned visualization, and coaching is a lot about details. Have you visualized how you will build out those chops of rotation management, end of game management, clock management, load management, series management, everything that goes into those little details? And do you have a philosophy, a plan? Obviously you don't have the firsthand experience doing it yourself. You've been around it, you've experienced it through other coaches, and will that be something you rely on heavily with support from your bench?
Yeah, again, going back to just collaboration, this is all going to be a really fun part of this summer over the next couple months leading into September, is thinking about all those things, right? Once the roster is set, rotations, game management, load management, all that stuff. I think a big, and I told Rob this in Chicago, this is a big thing for me, is just my relationship and communication with analytics and my relationship and communication with performance. Those are as important as anything else that I can do as a head coach. And so I've certainly thought about all that stuff. It's obviously going to be dependent on the roster. But yeah, I'm going to use math.
Hey, JJ. Claire Dillon with The Guardian. First of all, sorry, right in front of you. First of all, happy birthday. Second of all, what misconceptions or concerns about you that you've heard in the last few weeks are you the most looking forward to dispelling when you're the coach?
It's a valid question, and I've certainly heard everything. It's been a really interesting 6 weeks or so, just in terms of being part of the engagement farming industry. It's been really interesting. However, I don't really have a great answer for your question, because I really don't. Honestly, I want to coach the Lakers. I want to coach the team. I don't want to dispel anything. I don't. I want to become a great coach in the NBA, and I want to win championships, and I want my players to maximize their careers. That's all I about.
Hey, Coach. Timothy Parker, Spectrum Networks, Los Angeles. I talked to Ryan Hollins about you. He said you were very meticulous in your preparation and said you had one of the most cleanest lockers, too. How does that translate into being a head coach, from a player to a head coach, that same meticulousness?
Yeah, Look, I'm sure there are coaches that have a certain level of OCD like me that have been super successful. I'm sure there's coaches that are messy that have been successful. I think I don't think there's like a perfect sort of personality to be a coach. I have to be me, though. You know what I mean by that? Like, I have to be me. For me to be a good head coach, I just have to be me. I trust in who I am. I know what my weaknesses are. I don't know all my blind spots as a head coach, let's be honest. I don't, because I haven't done it yet. I know what my strengths are. Like, I'm confident in myself and who I am. And if the OCD helps at all, great. It'd be fantastic. I would love it if I could walk in the coach's locker room and everybody's just as dialed in as I am with just how compartmentalized their locker is, but it's okay if it's not that way.
Hey, JJ. Jim Alexander from the Southern California News Group. Welcome back to LA, by the way. With all the experience that you've had in various facets of this game, are you anticipating that there's going to have something come up this year that you're going to say, oh boy, I didn't see that coming? And how do you handle that?
Yes.
It wasn't that question, was it?
No. My expectation around something coming up and challenges on the court, off the court, the scrutiny, all that stuff, I have the highest of expectations that things are going to be there. And yet I recognize it's probably going to be worse than I could imagine. And in terms of how I would handle it, look, I don't know. What's the situation, right? What's the situation? Rob and I talked during this process about a very specific thing, and it goes back to one of my earlier answers. Like, some things can't be avoided. Some things I think can be avoided if you set those standards and expectations early. And so when you get to game 60 and something happens, you've already sort of built in the system for how to deal with that.
Good. One more.
Dennis Freeman, the Compton Bulletin. Coach, what's your priority as far as developing and evaluating talent at the G League level?
Yeah, we definitely talked about that during the process. And I think one of the things that we discussed different hypotheticals, of course. One of the things that we discussed is like, what is the vision for how we're trying to play? And so a big part of evaluating players in the G League, second round picks, undrafted players, whatever, guys on the summer league roster, all of that thing is like, can they fit with who we're trying to be? And so, I'll just be honest with you. A big thing for me is like, you need two-way players. You need guys that can guard to be a championship level team. So there's going to be an emphasis on that whenever I evaluate anyone that we're looking to sort of bring up on one of those last roster spots.
Thank you.